And I thank you so much, gentlemen, much appreciated for your presence. Jacob, starting with you first, given the circumstances we are in at the moment, do you think citizen journalism is a perfect platform and an opportunity to demand for accountability and good governance from the administration of the day?
All right. Good afternoon, and maybe just a clarification. My name is Jacob Nyukuri, not Mkuria, but pleased to be here. And just to your question about citizen journalism, and I'll beg to differ with the definition of the citizen journalism, because again, we don't have citizen journalism. We just have journalists who perform that duty, and we have digital content creators who are able to use the space that they have to articulate issues and be able to address an issue or hold the government to account. Mm-hmm. So just from the beginning, there's that need for us to differentiate between a trained journalist and a citizen, or someone who has a digital platform or space where they can be able to use that and articulate the issues. And whether that, again, is being used to hold the government to account, yes. We've seen a lot of content coming from the general public mm-hmm. that is being again, picked by the mainstream media and being aired, and that, again, helps the space, people having to express themselves and being able to help others understand what is happening in the day. So both the media, I'll say, and the public has played a big role to holding all leaders to account and even government to account.
But then where do you draw the line in terms of the framework that confines mainstream professional journalists and a citizen journalist, let me say, who has access to the internet, has a smartphone, can X, can Facebook, can put the information on other platforms with no regard for timeliness and the ethics that do govern the profession largely, if you look at the mainstream side of issues. Therefore, where do you draw the line that appears to be very thin in the eyes of many media practitioners?
For me, I look at it because a journalist, and Ayub, you're a trained journalist, you're accredited by the Media Council of Kenya, and by that, it means that you have a responsibility and you are held accountable by the Code of Conduct for the Practice of Journalism, in that your work, in whatever you're doing it professionally. And that, again, gives you the powers to do whatever you want to do. But for a person who just has a phone and has access to internet and can open up a WhatsApp or mm-hmm. a Facebook page, they can do that. But you, who is a journalist, a trained one, you have a responsibility to ensure that whatever content you're sharing is credible, is fact-checked, it's researched well, as opposed to anybody who was just a phone. Because we've seen in the past, and even during the protests, people just picking content and sharing it, whether in total disregard of whether that info is factual or not. And that, again, becomes a problem. That was differentiates between a journalist and someone who just using their phone and to create content and share it.
Yeah, which, again, brings us to the question of credibility and verifiability aspect. Mr. Macharia, given that you work with the grassroots mobilizers and young Kenyans appear to be now shifting attention away from the traditional media to now leveraging on the internet and citizen journalism, how has this played a key role in getting your voices heard, especially from an experienced point of view?
So, well, what I can say is that personally, hamna shida. So what I can say is that personally, that term citizen journalism is a very broad word, because personally, I'm a journalist who has gone through training from Aga Khan University, Africa Check for fact-checking. Understand, I've been given grants by Media Council of Kenya, and necessarily I've not gone for a diploma somewhere, yeah? It all took from a passion perspective, I was passionate about storytelling. I was passionate about articulating issues of the people of the community. And how it has played a role is that by me being able to articulate these voices, because the mainstream, we have very few mainstream medias in this country, if you look at it, yeah? Some are even firing people. People don't have that capacity. But when you are trained as a citizen journalist, as you are trained as a community media journalist, you're able to articulate the voices of those people who the mainstream cannot be able to cover, because the mainstream cannot be able to cover everybody, you understand? But people have a voice. They want to be heard. People want to be able to articulate their voices. But what the challenges comes in when now people who are not trained on how to be able to differentiate between this particular, what is real and what is fake. That's why I told you, like, I had to go through a training from the Africa Check on fact checking. I had to go to a training to Aga Khan University on mobile journalism, because that is the tool that people are using to create their voices. It's very easy right now to just take a phone, do a selfie, and just talk about propaganda or anything that you don't understand, yeah? But with these particular tools, people can be able they can use them for positivity. And with these people who are trained and who are trained, like what the Media Council does, yeah? Training people and getting people to be able to be aware of what is fake and what is real can really be able to help, and it is able to amplify so many people's voices, because people have a lot to gather from. You know, when you have a lot of information, you can be able to pick what is true and what is fake. Not the way that the government wanted to control the media, the mainstream media, by saying, you know, you should not be able to cover this, you know, should not be able to cover this. This gives citizen a one perspective view. You know, you just have one perspective, and that is what you judge from. But with these particular tools and all these, it can be able to pick from various places and be able to come with your own judgment and on what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah. And then how about then sieving the information before you get it out? Yeah. And this is, as you have said, to loosen the government's grip on what the public sees, hears, and reads. But if you have 10 people and they are all putting out information on online platforms, then how about the trustworthiness, one? Two, verifiability, and then three, the question of trust and credibility that comes with the mainstream traditional media. How can that be factored in, even as you want to put out that information out?
Well, people right now are using mainstream as a verification tool. They are not necessarily using it to get information, you know? They are just using it as a verification, because even before the news goes to the mainstream, people have already known about it, yeah? They just want to verify that it happened, yeah? You understand? But with the basics of having so much information, the beauty is there. Having so much information, not being restricted to the information, because having that information gives you that intellect to be able to decide on what I want and what I don't want. And that's where now accountability comes in. You can be able to hold your leaders accountable, because now I can be able to follow on. You understand? I saw you when you are poor as an MP. How come now you have become a member of parliament? Now I see you flowing with a car. You understand? And that's now where the beauty comes in, that you can be able to follow on. And that's what now, when you talk about the line between for verification, is that do your research, follow on. Do your research. Don't make your judgment out of one maybe video or one particular information that you get. And that's what I'm saying. The beauty is there in having a lot of information that you can be able to analyze and be able to come with a conclusion of your own decision.
Okay. William, the common word here, and which appears to be the theme, is information that the public wants. They want to know what's happening. They want to know how their money is spent. They want to know how their government is undertaking its responsibilities as the Constitution prescribes. But mobile journalism or citizen journalism is, in many aspects, a double-edged sword, is it?
Yes, certainly it is. And of course, just riding on the comments of my fellow panelists, it will be very important, not just for us, but also for the congregation, to specifically know how to distinguish between what has in theory been called citizen journalist and the formal journalist. Well, you'll first need to ask yourself, who is a journalist? A journalist is someone who gathers news, collects news, sorts them, categorizes them, and thereafter distributes these news. And it is news which is of value, touching on different things. It could be news touching on entertainment, education, informational. That is what a journalist does. Then the distinction now between a citizen journalist and the formal trained journalist is that whereas formal trained journalists, one, they subscribe to a code of ethics. Here in Kenya, we have it under the Media Council Act. That is a code of conduct for the practice of journalism. And then also, The trained journalists, they also associate with a media establishment, a media enterprise. That is what they associate with. Unlike a citizen journalist who is just a citizen, who is in possession of a digital tool, has access to internet, and they can be able to gather news, to share that news. So then, just as you have stated that it is a double-edged sword, the benefit is that whereas a citizen journalist, it has broadened the sphere of freedom of expression, because the Constitution under Article 33 grants all citizens the right to share ideas, to populate ideas, but then there's a rider. So long as you do not offend certain principles, one of them being hate speech, propaganda for war, ethnic incitement, those are the boundaries that one should not go against. So the sword will come in the sense that if you're a citizen journalist, whereas it will be very good that you share this information, you distribute it, you need to be cautious. Because the Constitution, as much as that right is given, the same Constitution also mandates us all citizens to also respect the privacy and the rights of other people. So if you're a citizen journalist, bloggers, for instance, if there's a matter that you really feel that it is of public interest, and of course public interest is where it touches on the welfare of the wananchi, if it's a matter of public revenue, if it's a matter of public expenditure, then that is a matter of public interest. Then you can be able to expose it. And it's normally a thin line, and that's where, and I agree with my colleague here, training will be very important, because training will help both categories of journalists to know, how do I distinguish what is the private life? For example, one debate that has always been there, if you are a public servant, a very good example is the Olympic sports. You are a public servant, you are the CS, you've been told that to choose a delegation to represent Kenya and its athletes in that specific sports. Then among that delegation, probably you have taken a relative, you have taken maybe a girlfriend who does not qualify to be there. Then of course, as much as this is a CS who is doing this, there's a distinction. As a public servant, they have a higher obligation to leadership and integrity. So if you're a blogger, you'll be very, very much protected if you blow or you expose such an exposure. He's using taxpayers' money, he's put people who ought not to be on that trip, yet there could be some other athletes who have been left behind. So of course, our constitution and the laws which are there protects every citizen. You can disseminate information, you can blog, and you'll even realize that citizen journalists have been the people behind most of the major events in the world. When you look at the tsunami that happened in Aceh, Indonesia, the mainstream media had to rely on the fast footage of citizen journalists. Even when you look at Egypt, the revolution, citizen journalists played a very critical role. So as much as the right is there, we can be citizen journalists, all of us here, but we need to be cautious. What does the Constitution say? We can distribute any information, but let us protect and respect the right of other people. Let us not propagate ethnic incitement.
Responsibility.
Yes.
That comes with that exercise of the right that the Constitution does enshrine. Joshua, do you think that with the media freedom that we have in our country, given the vast array of institutions that were born out of Katiba 2010, ever since its promulgation, and an environment that appears or is free more than the previous regimes that we have had, and the internet now coming up of age, the advent of applications that are so fast in the dissemination of information, do you think one complements the other, and is it a cause for good governance, a platform upon which the Kenyan people can hold their government to account?
Thank you, Ayub, and good evening, friends. Let me start by saying that I associate myself with what my fellow panelists have said. But to come to your question, maybe I start by a story. 3 weeks ago, when I went missing, and I just notified 2 people in my contacts whom I could reach very easily at that time. And then I could not be reached again. These 2 people went and reported to other people, reported to my counsel at the Kenya School of Law, and then the counsel picked it up, and they started amplifying the fact that I was in distress at some point, and then I could not be reached at that time. And they shared that information, and they started a hashtag that whoever was holding me to free me, at that point, then they thought that it would be better to have a presser. That is when they reached out to, the mainstream media to come forward and also be part of this amplification. So, look, the long and short of it is that, yes, citizen journalism and mainstream, or rather trained journalism, they complement one another, each other, in the sense that, Ayub, we cannot have citizen TV or nation media TV reporters everywhere in this country. We cannot have radio reporters everywhere. There are certain things that happen every day, and the mainstream media gets to know through clips that have been recorded using people's phones. We've had people being reported missing. The mainstream media gets this information from, say, X or Facebook or wherever it is. So again, it's the fact that the mainstream media does not have the longest hands to cover everywhere. But it is through these people who are untrained, the citizen journalists, that they get to get their part of their story. Of course, we have stories where the mainstream media are called for pressers, and they are told, this is the thing, let us communicate. But at the same time, there are things that they cannot get in touch with. Again, I think the previous speaker has spoken to the rights granted in the Constitution, and of course, the institutions surrounding access to information and freedom of media. It is important that to note that citizen journalists really do not report authoritatively. But in most cases, I've seen people just recording what they've seen in real time, and they post that without commentating, without doing anything. They just record what we can see. I think for me, that is a very good beginning point for citizen journalism. Just record what you know, what you've seen, and what can be of interest to the general public, and let it out there. Now, whoever has the right training, whoever knows the ethics surrounding reporting and journalism now can pick it up, dig into the story, get what is happening, and then report authoritatively. So I think in another way, it's just a matter of people complementing one another and trying to fix in where the other can't reach. Because at the same time, there are those of us, and a majority of Kenyans who do not have access to smartphones. So that means they are not on TikTok, they are not on X, they are not on Facebook or wherever. These people listen to radios. These people watch local TV stations. That is where they get the information. So again, just with the citizen journalism or with the digital journalism, we cannot get to reach everyone, especially in matters of national importance like what we've seen in the past 3-4 weeks. So we also have to get the mainstream media have its space so that we consider those that cannot get in touch with the digital journalism.
Jacob, given the events that surrounded 18th June 25th and thereafter, which led to sudden turn of events, including the dismissal of the cabinet and the president making major decisions, and this largely out of the protests that had leveraged on the internet, young Kenyans born 97s and afterwards who had gathered their energy in calling for accountability from the government. I mean, we are not in the space where the Arab Spring was in 2010, because the event which happened in Tahrir Square, which saw out Mubarak after more than 30 years in power in Egypt, Zain Abidine Ben Ali in Tunisia, where it all began with Mohamed Bouazizi setting himself on fire, and spreading to Libya and largely to the Arab world, still active in some parts of Syria. we are not there because the Kenyan media seems to have the free environment to practice that, to stretch that freedom up to the extent guaranteed by the law. What we are yearning for is good governance. But can that be attained with the advantages that come with mobile journalism, citizen journalism, where had no one documented how Alfred Keter was abducted, today it will be a different story. Had Joshua's case not been amplified, today it will be another story. Is it aiding in the attainability of good governance, given the gross failure by successive governments in Kenya in failing to meet the expectations of the public?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and it's helping a lot in terms of just highlighting issues. The digital space has provided a platform where people can express themselves freely. But of course, as Mr. William said, it's very important for us to respect the freedoms and the privacy of each individual. At the end of the day, that space has really grown, and everyone is using that space to agitate for what they want to agitate. And again, providing fodder and providing feed for the mainstream media to cover that. And I think going forward, as he mentioned, it's a complementary approach that one should look at, that yes, the public can provide that information, they can record that, they can be able to air that, but again, there is that need for the media again to play its role. As much as there's that freedom for them to be able to highlight issues, there is always that bit of professionalism, ensuring that the public is getting the right information. And again, just looking at objectivity, how objective is the media? Has the media been objective in the way it's airing its content? Has the media, been following the ethics that it ought to follow? And that helps, again, in just making sure that the space, again, as we continue to do our bit as journalists, also the public has a responsibility to be able to work in that space, to be able to enlighten the issues that are coming up in the public.
And William, coming to you, in the context of an operational newsroom, a story before it goes on air is subjected to editorial standards and decisions that are made to avoid a possible litigation. But here you have a mushrooming of mobile journalists who are not regulated, but they are putting out information with no regard for the content, whether graphic or not, whether it qualifies as a hatred message or one that can lead to incitement. Given the number keeps on growing then and technology keeps on advancing, how then can regulatory measures be put in place here? Though the advantages are many and numerous, there are also disadvantages on the flip side, aren't they?
Yes, certainly so. One thing that we really need to, first of all, to draw a broad outline is that it is a best practice, it's in international best practice that the internet ought not to be overregulated because there is greater benefit of not overregulating it than harm. But regulatory-wise, here in Kenya, of course, there is a mushrooming number of citizen journalists, bloggers, people who are within that space. All is not lost. Because in my time as the chairperson of the Media Complaints Commission, and also in partnership with the Media Council of Kenya, we have put in place several mechanisms to try to infuse both training and also an adherence to professional ethics. One example that I can give, there is a Bloggers Association of Kenya, the BLAKE. It is an association that brings together people who practice within that space. So what we did is that we trained them on the essence of media ethics, and we came up with what is called a digital editor's code, something that will guide them. Issues of accuracy, issues of fairness, balance, and all that, the need to protect children. So once that code is there, what we made, we emphasize to them, there is a principle of self-regulation, and that is what we've been attaining to establish in Kenya. We told them these are the standards, this is the framework. It is very possible for you as an association to self-regulate. It is even a principle of peer review, such that if you know all these your members, if one member breaches, then you'll be able to peer review and hold that member into account. And luckily, a great majority of those people have signed up. So it is only when a member breaches and there is no resolution, or that person who is affected is not satisfied, that is when you can escalate. But I emphasize again, there should not be over-regulation of the internet, because there is more benefit and less harm than doing that.
Joshua, 25th of June will remain forever etched in the memories of many Kenyans, and this is largely as a result of mobilization of young Kenyans, which happened through the online media. Has it forever changed Kenya's governance landscape from where you sit?
Definitely, Ayub. Actually, sometimes I sit down and I think to myself, if we didn't have these digital platforms, then mobilization in this era and times would be very difficult. But the fact that the agitation started online, the agitation started on WhatsApp groups, the agitation started on X Spaces, the agitation started on TikTok, and people were actually speaking languages that their audience can understand. Those that understand Sheng best were spoken to in Sheng. Those that understand English best were spoken to in English. And those who understand every other language were spoken to in different languages. So really, I can say that what culminated into the win that the people of Kenya had on 25th of June was greatly contributed to by digital spaces. It was greatly contributed to by digital spaces because, look, we had people from every corner of the country, from every major town in Kenya coming out to say, look, we want an accountable government, we want a transparent government, we want a government that listens, we want a government that is ready and willing, all right, to progress the agenda that is going to improve the lives and livelihoods of the people of Kenya. That was done on Spaces. That was done on TikTok. That was done through videos. There are people who just watch a video, they were like, no, I think now I need to go to the streets. The people who just attended one space and they had people talking and with a lot of conviction that it is time that all of us come out to speak and say enough is enough. And that was enough to convince them to go to the streets. So had we not have the digital spaces, had we not have this, what we are loosely calling citizen journalism, honestly, it wouldn't have turned out as it turned out on the 25th of June. Okay. So yes, it greatly contributed, and we have seen change. Much as we are seeing our demands have not been met fully, but at least we've seen something. We've seen someone getting to a point they're like, no, I really need to rethink. Then I need to get my cabinet back, reorder my cabinet, which has not been done rightfully so, but at least there was something. Yeah. We have seen an inspector of police stepping down. That is something. We have seen changes. We have seen the government calling the opposition to the table and saying, look, it is time we get back together to unite the people of Kenya. It is not unity in itself, but at least that is an indication that what started as an online agitation is resulting to a change that we would want to see moving forward.
Thank you. Macharia, I have a specific question for you, but first, let's also pick this voice from the online platform. It's a conversation on X, and we have someone with a query, question, or observation that he or she has made regarding this topic that we are discussing here. We can listen in. Okay, at checks on X, that is the conversation, which is equally online on X. If you can hear me, please, a question, a query, an observation. All right, as we do that, and we'll be getting that question. So the auditorium is also full of Kenyans who are here with us. The roving microphone will be coming to you. Anyone? Yes, the gentleman in the suit. Let's start from there. If it's a question, start by your name. The question, be precise and brief. Unaweza zungumza Kiswahili pia ukitaka. Tafadhali.
So good evening. My name is Dennis Juma. So my question actually is directed to you, Ayub. I think we've been on the streets for the longest time, and about the mainstream media, do you fully feel like you have the right to practice your justice on showing the nation and all the wananchi that this is what is happening? Because I mean, not apart from X or maybe other social media, there are some of the information that you're getting that are being, the government is like trying to hide it away from the people to know. So do you feel as a journalist that you have all the rights, or maybe you feel like all the things that you need to give to the community or the people is reaching out to them? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll answer you. Yes, the gentleman in the suit here. And then I don't have ladies apparently. Yes, and then I'll come to you next. Yeah. We took the whole three.
Good evening. My name is Eric Adjufle, and my question is directed to you, Ayub.
Okay.
Yeah, the role of journalism in the contemporary society.
Yes.
And the impartiality of the journalism. We've been having undocumented number of stories being undocumented, or rather there have been no reporting on the grassroots level. What are you doing to address those issues, particularly in the ground root level? Thank you.
Yeah, is there a specific case that you want us to zero in? Okay. Yes, the gentleman just behind you, yeah. And then.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Ondimu Atera. My question is directed to Mr. Okayo, my good friend. For the benefit of the Republic, kindly elucidate on what hate speech is, so that we may know, in the context of journalism, what hate speech entails. Thank you.
Yeah. You want to specify?
Yeah. My dad actually, I have an issue with my dad his right has been violated, and we reported the issue. Nothing has been done. The Standard Media Group. And it was about illegal deduction of his salary. And now I want the issue being reported, actually, because he's not gotten justice for his case.
He's an employee there?
Yeah. He was working at TSC.
At Teacher Service Commission?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's take the lady and then the gentleman.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My question is directed to you, Ayub. So I'm wondering, has the media been compromised in this season? Because most of the reporting looks like Fulani's child has allegedly been shot. Are you telling us that you think they've been shot, or are you reporting that they actually have been shot? The reporting is Fulani allegedly said that Fulani was allegedly shot. Whose job is it to tell us what's happening? Has the media been compromised? Please tell us the truth. Also, is the media able to act on its own? Is the media able to tell us what exactly is happening without fear of being silenced, without fear of being told, we'll shut down your TV station? Is it possible to get all the numbers? Because he's also mentioned something about we're not getting all the statistics. The people who have been missing for the longest time, the people who are shot. Then we're hearing that apparently BBC has said there was no massacre. But we live in this country and we see what's going on. So is the media going to tell us? Is the media with us? Is it against us? Has it been compromised? Thank you.
Thank you. Final one? Yeah, the last one, yeah. This gentleman, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for the insightful comments that we have had. My name is Duncan Onyango. I'm a lecturer at the Technical University of Kenya. And I want to draw my question from what happened in 2007, 2008. during the 2007 election and then the subsequent post-election violence. We know the circumstances that happened, especially on the media. There was a media blackout. Then the national media, KBC, was called, and we had an announcement being made, Mimi Mwai Kibaki. How far are we from there? What gains have we made, and how sure are we that such a thing cannot happen in a mainstream media that is largely regulated by the government, licensed and regulated by the government? What is the strength of the line that separates us from the events of 2007? A quick one related to it is the digital media, the citizen journalism that we are talking about that predominantly relies on the internet, that is controlled and monopolized by Safaricom and the government. So that what happens, one day we can just go into an internet blackout and anything happens. How safe are we, and what can we do? Maybe from a journalistic point of view, even from a legal point of view, what protects us as a nation if the government should decide just to send us into an internet blackout, similar to the media blackout that we have? Then lastly, the independence of the mainstream media. I'm not sure if Ayub Abdikadir will be able to comment about this authoritatively. Yes. When, for example, we know the chairman of the Royal Media Services in the last election took a partisan stand on one of the political sides. And we know that Citizen TV and the Royal Media stations are some of the media houses, the mainstream media houses that really rely. How as a citizen, from a citizen point of view, who was whichever political sides you are in, especially from 2022, if you are on the other side of the political divide, how then do I still trust the independence of Citizen TV or the Royal Media and be able to separate the chairman from Royal Media Services? Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have one question from Taleb at Taleb on X before we respond to. Yes, is it at Taleb on X, the online community which is following this discussion?
Yes, am I audible? Yes, good evening. My name is Taleb Ogola. So I wanted to ask this because the last interview that the likes of Latif had with the president, President William Ruto, I was a bit disappointed with the media conduct. You people kept on asking questions which actually seemed like you people were there to just corner the president with answering questions that were actually irrelevant. I mean, if you are interviewing the president, you should give him the chance to answer the questions before you chip in with another one. So I was just asking, how are you people as the media itself, how are you ensuring that there's accountability when you people send such kind of personalities to question the president? And how do you uphold professionalism? That's just it.
Okay, thank you. So much of the questions were directed to me. I won't respond to the final one, but I will respond to all the others. And Joshua, there's one for you. So allow me to exhaust the questions. Yeah, you can chip in. No, not a problem. Yeah.
The stage and leave you answer the questions.
So the first question was on the role of journalism on contemporary issues. Yeah. So the profession is largely considered as an estate of its own, fourth. So ours is a complementary role in the sense that we act as an avenue between those you, the Kenyan people, have given the mandate to govern over you, and you, the people. So ours is now to create that channel of communication. in this way, that there must be accountability for the taxes that you pay, for example. And this translates into good governance so that you can get better healthcare, you can get functional infrastructure, you can get good education, which isn't a privilege, but a right for you as a Kenyan citizen under the Bill of Rights and our current constitutional order. Therefore, ours is to play that pivotal role, to act as the fulcrum between you, the taxpayer, and those who you have handed over power, who govern over you over a period of time before they get back to you, the people, and seek a fresh mandate. And then that is a responsibility which you have sovereign over, whether you want to extend their term for another 5 years or not, because you have that right under law to go to the ballot and vote. So in that essence, the consequence of journalism and the profession is then to create awareness amongst the people. Look, we have no powers to, for example, prosecute those who do bad with your taxes, those who steal, government officials. But what we can do is, by virtue of spotlighting their wrongs, we empower you. That translates into making a decision of getting people with integrity, people who will look after your resources in the next time when the election comes. And the beauty about it is that we have set our election times, the dates of our election, in the Constitution. We know after every 5 years, the Kenyan people will head to the ballot and exercise their right. That right grants them the opportunity to sieve amongst the many of those who are seeking leadership positions, both from at the MCA level up to the presidency. You sieve, you have the opportunity to listen to them and grant that power and mandate to the people who you deem or who you see as fit in looking after your resources, people with integrity and who largely align with Chapter 6 of the Constitution, which has the characterization of what the Constitution establishes. Therefore, ours is to act as that balancing point between you and those who are in power. Ours is timeliness, because the profession for many of us is a lifetime profession. It isn't set in time, but one generation after the other of the profession will help you get that information which empowers your thinking and empowers the society to make critical decisions that will get them good governance at the ballot. All right? The second question was on, you had a matter with the TSC, which you said the media hadn't reported. Did you reach out to specific media about the complaints for highlighting purposes? Because this is the point. Look, everyone within the society, we have no regard for class. We have no regard for status. Ours is to hear. Ours is to amplify the voices of the commoners. Because you are the constant factor in all this equation. I mean, you are the bearers of the powers. And any media house, any organization, always prioritizes to hear from the common person. There's no one day, if you get to the gates of any media organization, you'll be locked out. Because if we can't hear you, then it means then that is unfair. Unfair in the sense that we are not getting your voices heard. And the platform that we offer to you or any other person or anyone seated here is critical, because we all aspire to have a functional system where everyone gets justice. It isn't only an issue that affects, for example, your kin or a friend or a relation, but all Kenyans. Therefore, our gates are not closed to any party. We have no specifications as to who to listen to and who not to listen to. In fact, the priority should be the common person whose voice is important and who is the common taxpayer that we all at the time focus on him, on her, or her to get their voices heard and amplify using our platforms, because we are here for you, and we are here for you to get the information that you require in order to make informed decisions. Therefore, at no point will the gates of any media house be closed in hearing from a common person, whether it's your dad, it's your kin, relation, or any other party.
And then Ayub,
yes,
just a minute before we continue, because also he touched on grassroots. How do you get to tell about grassroots and community-based stories? Let me tell you, people don't understand the power of this particular form, because as I said when I was starting, that the mainstream cannot cover everybody. They only have like 1 hour, and these days they have reduced it to almost 30 minutes because people are already aware of what is going on. For example, like for your case where your father maybe didn't get justice in form of the TSC, do you have a smartphone? If you have a smartphone, that is enough tool to create awareness, because that's what I even say, that the role of the media is to create awareness, but not to prosecute, nor to be able to it's just to give you information, and they say information is power. If you have this particular mobile phone, you can be able to articulate your issues. You can be able to put your issues out there so that you can be heard. And this is because of the notion that we had from forever and from way back, that the power of the mainstream. People forgetting that now with the internet, that's a platform by itself where you can be able to articulate your issues. Take that video, tag TSC, write your issues there. Say that this person has not been paid. And let me tell you, people who are associated with that particular TSC, they will see, they will hear, and they will maybe, if they will do what they are supposed to be doing. And that is what is called holding people to account. And that is what citizen journalism is here to do, to hold people into accountability. When you are there out there demonstrating, a police officer is arresting you, and you are seeing somebody being facing police brutality. This is your phone. This is your personal gadget. Take that video. A police should not intimidate you. As long as he's doing the right thing, he's not supposed to intimidate you with your phone. Take that, and that is what citizen journalism is here to do.
Yeah. And once you tag even TSC or the party that you're seeking solutions from, you can as well tag the media houses on X. I mean, that is picked up from, then follow-up can be done. If you're in a remote area, then our teams will be dispatched, and your story should and must be heard. To the lady's question, has the media been compromised? No. Is the media able to act on its own? Yes. Have you been silenced? No. And if events of the 25th of June 2024 have been covered, which is unprecedented in many ways, when protesters partly breached the security fence of Parliament because they were aggrieved with the conduct of their parliamentarians, and many had argued that all sovereign power always belongs to the people of Kenya, as Article 1 enshrines. Therefore, if we had given limelight to such an event of momentous scale and the environment around the country that day, which was largely fearsome, it will be unfair if I say we have been compromised. But are there attempts to always, all the time, affect the operations of the media? Yes. Any government doesn't want a free media that allows its people to be made aware about events that happen. The Jubilee Party under President Uhuru Kenyatta had sponsored the Security Amendments Bill in December 2014, which had largely affected the media fraternity, and the stakeholders came out and decried about that. Some sections were scrapped out by a court of law. And the conduct of the present administration and how some officials have come out, the likes of Senator Aaron Cheriot, saying that the media is also a cartel that must be crushed and that something must be done by the current government. This tendency of animosity in wanting to compromise and to capture the media is always ever present in any given administration, and happens across the world because the media always becomes the punching bag when it lifts the lead on some of the scandals, some of the government's shortcomings and underwhelming performance in failing to meet the expectations of the public. Donald Trump had 4 years at the White House, and he had a disastrous relationship with the media, calling them fake all the time. You stand up, you want to ask a question, he tells you, no, you're from the fake media, can you sit down? So these attempts are there, but they can't be practicalized under a modern Kenya. No, it can't happen. Maybe in some other countries in the region, I don't want to be specific.